Hi, Janice.
How you doing?
Glad to see you. You're
Okay.
looking well. I love your background. We've got, what, 15 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to record for now. I'll shut it down. Engagement. Expanding capacity for issue-based action. Okay. That's our topic for today. And I think, as usual, Dr. Clark, you can start on, and I will remember to record.
It just started. And if you didn't start it, I didn't start it.
Kathy
It's
started it.
Okay, thank you,
okay.
Kathy.
Well, see, there you go.
I saw you behind the black curtain. So,
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna go and come back and see if it'll let me show my video.
Okay.
I'll be back. Thanks.
All right. All right. And we'll
um,
just wait. And we're going to go on. And when Kathy comes, that's fine. Okay. Well, Dr. Mary.
yes, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to those of you who took your time, precious time today. And if we could get everybody to mute, that would be helpful. Um, took your precious time today to join us for this 45 minutes of engaging conversation. Every month, I am always overjoyed and enlightened by the conversations that we have here. So thank you. Um, if you can either add your state to your name or put it in the chat, and Deborah and I will update that. We always like to know who's in the room. And also, it helps if you make a comment and someone in the room wants to reach out to you, they know how to reach you because they can find you by your state. So thank you for doing that. So the first question regarding advocacy is, what recruitment approaches successfully identify new advocacy-minded volunteers? And advocacy, as described and defined by your office, we know that advocacy means many things to many people. So, as you define advocacy in your state and in your office, what recruitment approaches successfully identify new advocacy-minded volunteers? I'll let that sit with you for a few minutes. And
And, you can come off of mute, or you can raise your hand. You can raise your virtual hand. You can do whatever. We're trying to, between the two of us, watch and make sure that your opportunity to comment is always here.
while you're thinking about that, can I just see a show of hands of those who do advocacy work in some form or fashion? Okay, I see four. Okay, great. Josephine, did you raise your hand?
I did not, but I have done plenty of advocacy. I love advocacy.
I know you have.
And you're
Um,
still doing it. So,
Polly, I see that you have your hand up. What are
Hi.
you doing in Massachusetts?
I would say when it's related to a specific area that resonates with them is where we have success. So whether it's caregiving, if they're a caregiver and they have that personal story, or if it's fraud and they have that personal connection. So sometimes it's hard to be broad, but once you hone in on a specific area or social security, then that's where they sort of grasp onto that concept of helping with advocacy.
Thank you. And I think sometimes, especially if a new volunteer comes in and we forget AARP speak and we begin talking about advocacy, sometimes that can be a little threatening or a little intimidating to some who are not familiar with the various ways that advocacy can work. In some states, it means going to the state house or going and talking to legislators in person and being right there at the state capitol. In other states, it might mean carrying that message out into the community, not really having that face-to-face interaction with those in the political realm. So it's defined however you define it. Dale, I see you have your hand up. What's going on in
Yes, what I
Maryland?
was,
Oh, you muted
oh,
for
I'm sorry.
okay.
You
Now
had
we
answered my question where I'm a part of advocacy group. I do care. I'm more out in the community, as you guys know. So, like the young lady said, sometimes I'm asked to talk about my caregiving background to people. When, like I said, when they look at advocacy, they think, "Oh, I'm going to the Annapolis Maryland State House and I'm talking." But a lot of times, my advocacy is in my community because they see me the boots on the ground, and then I let my person that handles advocacy, Sarah Westbrook, I would tell her the stories that people are telling me, and we bring us like a group together. So I like what she said, that sometimes it's not going to your capital, your state house. You're right there in your community and you advocating for them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is all advocacy is powerful. And I think
Oh,
that's the message that we want everybody to understand that however you advocate for whatever AARP mission you advocate, it's all very powerful work. And we want everybody to feel that their work is powerful work. Dennis, what's going on in Tennessee?
I guess what we try and do at least once a year, we uh, do a poll of our volunteer team to find out what they're passionate about this year, because we all have evolving passions, evolving focuses. Like Polly said, we try and find out where they have that passion. And if they have a significant level of passion, it may evolve into an advocacy role for that focus area. We do as well do a lot of state house visits, try and visit with our constituent representatives in their local offices. They're not in the legislature, but I think it comes down to finding the volunteer's passion and then focusing that passion and elevating it into an advocacy role.
And I think that's where it really solidifies what the volunteer's heart is in, and it makes it not feel like volunteering or work. It's just doing what they enjoy doing. So I like that you revisit that a couple of times a year, and that's a really good practice to consider because things do change. We change and our interest, although it may remain, we might become interested in something else by either something that impacted us personally or by just the need for us to speak up when we see something, that makes us think, well, I want to do that now. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Dennis. Anybody else? Because I got more questions. Up, let me see who's up there in the corner.
Kathy,
Kathy, what's going on
yes.
in Minnesota?
Oh, there's a lot going on here, but that's for another day. As I just had a thought that with ARP, we get a lot of emails and they're almost too overwhelming to read them all the time. And I feel if I'm feeling that my clients or other people in our art community probably feel the same way, can we put together something that when we go and give a presentation, maybe have a panel board or let them know what we're advocating for, not only that, but how does it affect them personally? Because when people feel that personal connection to that change, that's when they'll go out and make the vote or they'll go out and advocate. That's just my thought.
And that's a good thought. Anybody have anything to contribute to what Kathy's saying? Have you done something like that in your area?
Not on the ARP side, but I would like to. But it's just me having to become more experienced myself in what ARP is advocating for. And I need to be able to make that connection to people to say, this is how it could affect you. This is how it's affecting you now. This is how it could possibly affect you for these people. And does that matter to you? You know, what matters to them and what doesn't? We need to get in touch with the people we're trying to help.
Thank you. Anyone else have any answers to that question? I'm going to put another question that we can consider in the chat, and I will read it as well. If advocacy volunteers will be scattered across your state or larger community, how do we make advocacy issue-based? How do we make advocacy issue-based, and how are they involved? So again, if advocacy volunteers will be scattered across the state or larger community, how do we make advocacy issue-based, and how are they involved?
I think that question kind of gets back to something that Kathy was pointing to, which is the communication that goes on. We need to think about how do we communicate with people when, as she says, emails are overwhelming us. I've had people tell me I need to text everybody, but I'm thinking if I text everyone, then that's going to be as overwhelming for them as the emails. So does anyone have a suggestion about what would make sense? What do we go to the volunteers and ask them what they want in terms of information? Has anybody tried that? What do we think here?
Dale, I see your hand. You just need to come off mute.
Goodness, I keep going back. I'm sorry. For Maryland, for us, when my advocacy team or the advocacy team, and like I said, I'm a part of Not Up There Every Day. Normally, I get like a cheat sheet of knowing what I'm discussing about. Maybe you can get something from your state office or the person that's the head of your advocacy director. Like Sir is for mine, for Sir Warwick for Maryland, but it's like we kind of get not a cheat sheet, but a syllabus that we can follow, that we can kind of speak upon, but we condition it to what our passion is. Mine could be caregiving one day, but also I advocate for the disabled seniors that's in my community because I'm on a rural area community. So I have more kind of like seniors that can't get to their thing because they need transportation to pick them up at their house because of they, handicap form. So, but I get a lot of my information from my state office advocacy director. And also I asked her to kind of help me do some bulletproof outlines. So I won't be kind of blindsided. I know what, bring all my information together if that will help you.
That's
That's
very
all
helpful.
I have.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm gonna ask, yeah, actually, I was going to interrupt and ask Polly or some of the Massachusetts folks who got more than Polly here to talk a little bit. Polly, you talk about what you want to talk about. And if you aren't already going to cover it, the idea of your fraud network that's
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah, great. So I'll use the fraud sort of as the advocacy topic, especially with the cryptocurrency kiosk bans that we're all trying to do. So one way that integrated our comms and marketing and the volunteers at the beginning stages was, can you take a picture wherever you are in your community of a cryptocurrency kiosk? Some people just didn't even know what they looked like because they look so much like ATMs, just regular ATMs. And they would send them to us. We'd share them with comms and marketing. They'd post it on social media just as an outreach and awareness attempt, and that was a great easy lift for volunteers at the basic level. And then you can, of course, across the state say, hey, can you reach out to your local representative and let them know about this bill that we're supporting to ban the kiosks? That's another step. Have a conversation with them would be even a higher level. So there's all different levels. We have a fraud team that meets once a month, and they have different ways of getting involved. So even if it's not a bill that we're supporting, it might be, hey, can you see what shred event is happening in your community? And we can help support that shred event. It doesn't have to be an AARP shred event. We can, like if it's a credit union, for example, we're allowed to support that. We're allowed to support a local event, or if it's run by the town, we can support them too and hand out our Fraud Watch handbooks, which are a great resource. So there's all different levels of ways to get involved right in your backyard, because all of our states are, quite large. It's hard to cover the territory by staff. So the volunteers are amazing in their outreach efforts, and seeing how we can piggyback our fraud presentations with the Speakers Bureau too. They'll always invite a law enforcement representative from the town that they're presenting in to come speak with them and say what they're seeing and what steps they suggest people to take as well.
Thank you very much, Polly, for
Yeah.
that. That was, I think, very helpful. One of the other things that we see a lot, trying to figure out whether volunteers and staff whether staff have enough volunteers for advocacy. Does everyone have enough? Should we get more? I've been a volunteer with AARP I'm in my 17th year, I guess now. And which is, that's what I said too. I'm reminded. And I went, okay. But when I first came on, my thought was, okay, I see the note that says there are 38 million plus or minus members to AARP. And then there are only 60,000 volunteers. Now, I know that's not 100% accurate because in terms of the 60, because there are also people who only get involved on a phone call or when, say, Social Security is under the gun kind of thing. And there may be up to 4 million of those. But I was wondering and thinking about this topic, how do we get even more people involved? What works? I see Josephine is shaking her head, but I don't know if that means. Are you ready to tell us something here?
Well, I'm a little worried about Dr. Clark right now because she's under a tornado watch.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little frazzled by that. But in terms of where do we find people?
Do we
Let's see.
need more? Do we
Right?
need
Do you
more?
need more? That's the first question. Do you need more? Do you have enough people to fill your need, or do you have a need for more people? Before we bring people in, we always want to ask that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need more volunteers? What are we going to do with them? Are we ready to put them in place and support them right away and get them going so they don't walk away?
Right.
So, yeah, so for me, when I was looking for advocates and other folks, especially like earlier we talked about regions that have spread out, right, volunteers, and how do you communicate with these folks when they're so spread out like that, right? But these folks have something in common. They have a passion, they have an issue. Those issues are usually located to organizations. These organizations usually have email lists, right? So it's thinking about where these folks are and how do we use other opportunities to come alongside folks that are already organizing, these folks that are already, you know, have some action, going around the issue? How do we come alongside and say, hey, we care about this issue too, and we love to, be added to your list, and also we'd love to be able to share something with you so that you can share with your list, right? So I think that's one way that we look for those pockets of people, however spread out they are, by topic, by issue, by commonality. So that's an idea.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. And now I, of course, got another question for people, and that is when you're providing training or the talking points or the information that people need when they're going to the legislature, what do you give them? How do you have enough information? How do you get all of that together? Is a half a day training enough? Is a piece of paper enough? What makes sense? Dale, may I ask you, tell us what you do?
I kind of go on virtual meeting like we're doing now with Sarah. If even though I'm live about an hour away from her, if
Mhm.
I don't speak up front, but she'll get I get ideas from her. We discuss my topic again. My passion is caregiving and caregivers that's dealing with disabled people. So
Mhm.
I kind of get the background. And it's like a pro or con thing. Sometimes you can give your delegates too much information, and sometimes you can give them too little information. So I have to. She helps me to find balance so that I
Okay.
won't lose the delegates or people that I'm speaking with, you guys. But it definitely is. We do normally meet twice before our date to go speak before our delegates at the state capitol, so that I am prepared. Our other team members that's going to be discussing with me, we're all prepared and kind of on the same page. So, Captain, for y'all like me, I'm not an advocacy speaker, but I do have passion for the people that can speak on my behalf sometimes. So I tell them my story and they put it before the delegate because they have that presence and get right to the, as they say, to the heart and the meat of the situation. So, but
Okay.
we do have virtual meetings. I write up something and send it past her. So I kind of get like a editorial of what I want to discuss or what I should
Okay.
put before them.
Okay. Uh, Polly, I know you've already talked about your fraud work, but I just wonder in Massachusetts, how much training is enough or too much or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little case by case as well. I
Okay.
know Jess, who does the advocacy work, will work one-on-one with people as well if they're going to speak
Mhm.
at the State House and help create some sort of script slash guidelines of, parameters of what they can say so that they feel comfortable, can have a practice, session here at
Mhm.
the office. We're right next to the State House. So do some practicing before going over there, but really making sure people are comfortable with what they're going to say, that they
Mhm.
know what to anticipate, even just logistics of like going through security and just you get more
Mhm.
comfortable with those steps.
Okay.
And putting the ask out there. Oftentimes it's reaching out to a volunteer, getting to know them and know what their personal story is, and then we make the ask if they feel comfortable speaking and testifying.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
Kathy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I have a question for the folks that have spoken and or the folks that haven't yet. Um, I feel very much like the personal story is that's the gold, right? To be
Hmm.
able to tell a personal story and that Dale, as you so eloquent, I'm not an advocate. I want to go in and tell my story. It's like, yes, actually, that makes you an advocate
Yeah, right.
because the story is powerful. Who you tell it to and where you tell it and when you tell it are all, details that can require different levels of training or experience, et cetera. But the story is, to me, is the gold. I have a question about, and Dale, I'll ask you since you brought the example up, but if you go in and tell your story and then you link it to and AARP is working on this, right? And I heard Polly say one option for volunteers, and you talked about what everybody across the state could do, is go in and share their story and tell them that AARP is working on something, right? So that's sort of like, here's my story. AARP is working on something here, like take this. I'm not an expert in it, but here, take it. And I know my story's important, right? Versus here's my story. AARP is working on this, and I really feel like, right? So it's all feels to me like levels of building on your story with this comfort of how much you feel like speaking to AARP's position versus just saying AARP hasn't really, good information here. So
That's
Dale,
it.
you're nodding. Polly, I think you get where I'm headed. Just like,
Yeah, I'm getting where you're headed. Yes.
juice? What's the juice between, I have a story, I'm willing to tell it, but.
Go ahead.
Kathy's got her hand up.
Yeah.
How do we find people that have the capability of speaking and have that story? How are we reaching out to get those people and let them know they're wanted? We want your story, because the more people within a timeline that we can get up there to tell that story, the better.
Yeah, one funnel for us is our speakers bureau. They'll give presentations out in the community, and they often have people that come up to them afterwards at a caregiving or a fraud or a social security presentation and say, this really impacts me. I've been affected. And the volunteers themselves will be like, oh, come join us and we want to hear your story. And then it can proceed from there. So often directly from the volunteers out in community, that's often where we get them.
Anyone else?
Yeah, she's right, Kathy. She is so right on that. A lot of the people when I'm the boots on the ground in Maryland, I'm one of the boots on the ground. I wear a lot of boots and hats, but a lot of time, like Polly said, that the stories come to me, and I said, well, this is the person you need to speak at the state office for advocacy. But I tell them my story, and then all of a sudden we're both crying because we're hearing each other's story. And whatever they say to me, it stays confidential. I don't take it back to the state office. I tell them, here's my card, but reach out to this person if you want your story told. A lot of times, the people that in my community, they end up going to Sarah and tell their story in advocacy. And like the young lady said, they kind of like, do you okay if we use your story when we go to the state house? You read it first so that you're not blindsided. And they also get an opportunity to go to the state house with them. So they don't sometimes don't tell their own story, but they have a speaker, again, from the speakers bureau that tells their story, but they sitting right there giving the nods and stuff. So it's kind of like a marriage, like a union between the storyteller and the speakers bureau or the advocacy person that's speaking. Does that kind of help?
That does. I like that.
Yeah, the
Some
speakers
people,
bureau or the advocacy person normally marries that person that I'm telling their story.
some people want to tell their story, but they're scared to death of public speaking and they can't.
They can't. I agree. I agree.
Thank you.
Lydia has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am. I think, can you hear me okay? I'm
Yes.
talking to my headphones. Yes. Okay. I'd like to shout out to my fearless leader, Polly, Massachusetts. I want to go back to something that's very intriguing because it's what broke it for me in AARP. Kathy asked, I think it was Kathy asked, what changes a person from being a participant to a leader, to support a cause, to champion a cause. Okay, because I've been with AARP many years too, but never did I understand what the cause was, to be perfectly frank. It isn't until I joined this group, you, Deborah, where I learned that one of the most important things you need to do is you need to own the cause. Okay, it's only when I realized my relationship to AARP and why I needed AARP to do what I wanted to do in my organization that I really said, oh, wow, this is something I need to get behind.
Oh,
And then
right.
I had I have a great project leader like
Mhm,
Polly who said these are the ways in which we take these causes like fraud,
mhm.
like caregiving, and change them into things that you can take, Lydia, out to your community. So now I saw AARP as something that from which I can not only gain what I want to take out to the community, but it was something that I did want to take out to the community. That we can care intelligently, effectively, we can quantify, we can qualify this. I'm a quantity quality person. Don't talk to me in high level terms if you
Mhm.
can't tell me how you've done things and what the impact is at the other end. And so to bring it back full circle, I became an advocate when my AARP leaders like yourself, Deborah, like Polly, like Kathy, stepped forward and said, this is how it works. This is how it should work. Try this. Not this, not do this, do that. This is how it should work. This is how you can change and use some of these ideas to be effective in your own space. And then
Mhm.
it was like magic. It just fell into place.
Oh,
That's
right.
it for me. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that, because I know that's got to make Polly feel very good. And it absolutely makes us feel wonderful, because that's the point of what we're trying to get here is
Mhm.
information out, getting more and more people involved on whatever subject interests you. You know, so it doesn't bother us when we don't have the same large numbers. Each month it's different because we know the topic gravitates with some people more than it does others at different times. But that's okay. That's okay. We're glad with that. And I see Dr. Clark is back. Your background didn't change. I hope this means that the tornado passed you by.
Well, my background won't change because you know how Zoom backgrounds are, but
Right.
yes, it went around me, and I had to turn on the TV to kind of see, where things were because the alarm went off on my phone. But
Mhm.
um, unfortunately, it's kind of sitting in the area that I have to go to at
Oh,
3:15 today for physical therapy. So I'm going to have to give them a call and see what's going on over there. But
yeah.
thank you for uh, your support and your thoughts.
We're going to be concerned about everyone that's a part of this group, and so many people just have so much going on. Um, okay, any other questions? Let's see, comments. One of the things I can't even, I don't know. When you come to these things, you know I have a tendency to type and send some more things out. And in the chat, I've now put 3 documents. One of them you may have seen before. Matter of fact, I know we gave it out last year, and it's called Advocacy Muscle, Building Advocacy Muscle, 7 Steps. And so that one's available. You can pull all of these down off the chat, or you can pull them off the library, the Exchange library. There's another one that's called Recruitment Approaches to Identify new advocacy-minded volunteers. So there's a checklist with some suggestions for that. And then I also have something that I'm calling 7 strategies to recruit uh, passionate advocacy volunteers. And this dovetails with something that we were doing with the Plow Plant Prosper series over the past month and a half. I think it dovetails with the materials that are there, but this just happens to be maybe 6 pages instead of the whole book that we use in the Plow Plant and Prosper, and the others are pretty short. This is just for your information, in case you can find it useful. Okay, Dr. Mira, is there anything else that you would like to ask, because you're so good at that?
Well, I just some of the golden nuggets that I heard today that are things that, sometimes we think simple is always better. The boots on the ground that Dale mentioned, it's something that I think resonates with a lot of volunteers. If you want to engage someone, just let them know, as Lydia talked about, connecting what her interests and passions were to the things that Polly needed to take place in the office, and she was off and running. And I think that also echoed the same thing that Dennis said about reaching out a couple times a year or quarterly or whatever it is to volunteers and just asking them, what are you interested in now? Uh, those simple things that sometimes we're looking for those, high level pie in the sky solutions when it's just simple. Just ask a simple question. And the stories, many times there are so many powerful stories just among the volunteers. And there may be volunteers that really don't want to be front and center and they don't want to tell the story, but they don't mind their story being used. And sometimes a sound bite, 2 sentences of their story can be very impactful if they've given you permission to share. And so many of those things, again, help our state office, help our staff partners move the mission of AARP forward. Um, I know, I'm thinking about a personal experience that I had as a caregiver when I first started as a volunteer. I was too busy doing what caregivers do and supporting my mother. I didn't realize the power of my story. I didn't realize that, hearing that there were veterans benefits available and not being able to hire a lawyer to fill out the paperwork and do it, I did it myself. And I learned a lot about the process, but what my colleague, who was the associate state director at the time for AARP, saw as she watched me execute all these things was a story. And she simply asked me, Mary, can I just share that you were successful in getting the aid and attendance for your mother? Or better yet, would you be willing to share that at a pilot that we're giving for veterans and their families, so that they can see how it's something that they can do? And certainly I was willing to talk about it because I had just gone through the process. It took me 9 months, but 9 months in going through that process and realizing that from the day that I applied for those benefits 9 months earlier, that was the day that my mother benefited, and they paid us retroactively back to that date. That's a lot of money on the table that many of our veterans' families may not know about. And so, yes, I was glad to tell my story. I was glad to use that story. And the state director found out about it. And we were at a point where the CARE Act was being talked about in our state house. And they used a part of my story, my mother's story, um, when they submitted the CARE Act for consideration to the governor. So I didn't know all of that was that powerful. I was just being a caregiver. So those are the kind of things that many of our volunteers have going on in their lives. And yes, if that soundbite can help out, certainly they're willing to give that and offer that. So thank you all for bringing all those things together so magically. That's what I love about this conversation. It's kind of a group think, and when we end, we have so much more that we can take back to our teams. And sometimes it's just those little simple things that you can do, and it just kind of makes your work flourish. As Lydia said, it's magic, right?
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Clark. And does anyone else have something that they would either like to know and we haven't discussed, or something we'd like to discuss in the future, if not today? I'm just going to kind of throw it out there, for you.
Or as one of our staff partners says, if you don't say it, your hair will spontaneously combust.
I
Kathy?
tried to avoid that, the hair on fire thing. So. Okay, Kathy.
I have another question for the group, which is, I don't know if you feel like your state has volunteers in pockets. So here's the outreach volunteers, and here's the advocacy volunteers, and here's the event volunteers, and here's the speakers, or whether you feel like you're in a state where everybody's invited to everything and you can sort of pick and choose. And so with advocacy, we talk a lot in OVE about how are you inviting all of your volunteers to interact with, meet with, engage with the advocacy volunteers, and or be in a situation where they meet their legislators. So some of the states that I work with, it kind of doesn't matter what the local event is. The local government official is always invited. And so even if the local volunteer person doesn't feel like, I'm not an advocate, but I know Marianne, right? Oh yeah, she comes to all our events, right? So they're gradually introducing all volunteers to officials or experiences or people that then when the time comes to say, we're looking for some more advocacy volunteers, would you be willing? It isn't sort of a big leap. It's more of a step across a line. So just I see some people nodding. Just curious, what are those experiences that you think could work or that you're already trying in your state to blur that line, I guess, between I'm this kind of volunteer and not an advocate. Dennis, you are nodding. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
No, I agree with Kathy. I was just thinking, how would I describe our state? Are we in pockets or are we blended? I think during the year we're more in pockets, but we get our teams together at least quarterly and talk to them about all the activities that are going on to ensure that everyone has the ability to participate. I think one of the key things I realized, and was repeated frequently during this past year, was you're often asked to respond to an issue on a form letter. And we had drilled into us repeatedly from our state legislators, don't use form letters to get your point across.
Right.
Personalize your information in a secret email, direct it to your legislative representative. That'll have more impact and more long-lasting results than just becoming a name in a thousand similar copies of one email with the same content. It doesn't pass your story on.
Thanks, Dennis.
Josephine, you've got your hand raised.
Oh, my microphone was stuck there. Thank you.
Okay.
I was thinking that maybe for a future conversation or discussion, maybe we could talk about what is advocacy and what are the many forms that it takes, right? Are we talking about sharing a story, providing testimony during a hearing? Are we talking about grassroots mobilization? Are we talking about letter writing? All the different types of campaigns and efforts that we can do. Showing up in a group with red shirts, how powerful is that, right? So, what does advocacy look like? When do we employ it, right? And with whom, right? So, I think that could be a fun conversation to have.
And I tend to agree with you. Thank you very much, Josephine.
I
That is
agree.
probably something we'll have to tackle. Okay. And we are now down to the end of our time. It's hard to believe, but we are. And in terms of July, July is our next month. That one is growing leadership from within, pathways, tools, and opportunities. I think there's a lot of discussion about leadership for volunteers and what that means. And we may begin that approach as you're talking there, Josephine, about advocacy, find some ways to roll that in as well, because I think that's one of the titles that is available for people on the portal, which is advocacy leader kind of thing. So I think there's a whole list of those kinds. So that may be a good way to roll that in. So I want to thank all of you for coming today, and your contributions, I think, have been very helpful to people. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Thank you, OVE, represented by Ms. Kathy. And thank you all for questions, because the questions help us get more clarity about the work that we're trying to do and how we empower those who are 50 plus to live their best lives. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Have a
See you all
good
next month.
Yes, see you next month.
Thank
This
you, Deborah
meeting
and
was
Dr. Clark. Thank you.
recorded, so it'll be posted.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And I will stop that. Yes.